This is Helldivers 2. We're here on PlayStation 5. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is a cooperative shooter experience where you are working together in a crossplay scenario alongside PC in order to take on the various threats that are present, from bugs to also robots and whatever else they might end up adding down the road. So yeah, kind of interesting. There's been some network issues where quick play and stuff wasn't working, but I just randomly have people that join my squad while I was going to start, so I think maybe that might be working. Hit or miss in that regard. I'm sure eventually they will fix that entirely. Yeah, which makes sense. And I had like one crash when I was playing with my gear, and outside of that, everything seems to be running fine. So we've got two different visual options here. This is the quality mode, which is a 4K 30 FPS, which does have a much higher level of fidelity and detail. And then you can go to your options and down to visuals. You also get the option to adjust the vertical FOV. We're going to switch to performance mode, which is what we're going to be playing on, and there's an anti-aliasing option, which I think might be good, as the performance mode, which is the default mode and what you're likely going to spend most of your time playing on, will have some jaggedy edges in the menus and whatnot, most noticeably. So, performance mode is 1080p, 60 FPS. It did seem to run largely fine, maybe like a hiccup here or there, but it was pretty decent for quality in that regard. And yeah, that's kind of where you're at, 4K 30 or 1080p 60 FPS. And yes, 1080p is quite a bit blurrier in comparison to the full 4K mode. It would have been nice to have something a little bit higher resolution, but there is a lot that goes on. There's lots of enemies, particle effects, bullets, and all kinds of things going on, so I guess to a degree it makes sense. It also looks like there's some level of resolution scaling in here as well, because it is got that like kind of murkier thing to it, especially as I sit here looking at it from a reviewing perspective. So there you go from the technical side of things. And as just like a side point, really, this is a game that's not crazily complex to me, so I am a bit surprised that we aren't getting something a little higher resolution here, as it does look a little, like, I think it looks great, you know what I mean? Like, the art direction, the style of it, but I am just like a little bit not super current gen, if that makes sense. Maybe something you see last gen almost. But there is a lot of, again, particle effects, things going on, and, clouds and everything like that, so I kind of get it. So the game itself is based around a series of missions. I do find it semi-annoying in the sense that you are essentially you're locked to a certain set of planets. So it's really weird. You've got this like table that's a star map, and you won't even notice the robots unless you look for it. It's honestly really poorly set up in regards to like additional instructional things when you first start. But you got like on the left side, you're fighting robots. On the right side, you're fighting these bugs. Most people think this is just like a bug game. Like, it's basically Starship Troopers in design, concept, comedy, everything like that. It's just ripping off Starship Troopers. And then it's got like a mix of Destiny for your characters, and also like a little bit of ODST stuff from Halo. So it's kind of like a mix of games. And then the robots are basically stuff from Star Wars mixed with Terminator. It's bizarre, honestly. It's just like I'm trying to think of the best terminology for this. It's a very derivative collection of things, essentially. Like, it's fun to a degree. It is a little repetitive, though, in nature. So as I was kind of saying, there's this table, this map, this galactic map you're battling on. And the galactic map is based around the idea that you, as a global community, are fighting over specific areas. So there's usually like 2 planets aside. So the robot area has like 2 planets, and then the bug area has 2 planets. I just got shot in the back by a teammate because friendly fire is the thing in this game for some reason. Kind of funny. Yeah, so... But then you're stuck on this place, and I played it for something like, I think well over 4 hours. Why am I all the way over here? Yeah, it was something like well over 4 hours of gameplay, and we were still stuck on the same 2 spots. So it's almost designed like you're supposed to play it for like, I don't know, maybe like an hour or something, and then come back another day when the community is like liberated an area. And it's just kind of a little repetitive, because again, you're playing on the same map. It looks like there's a level of proceduralness that keeps it a bit different, but like you really are doing kind of the same thing. You jump down on a map, you walk to an area, destroy some things, walk to the other side of the map, destroy some things, walk back to that first area, destroy things, and then extract. And you're just kind of doing that like over and over and over again. And there are like some side things you can kind of do, but you're just literally doing that. And that's some of like the little buggy polishing things or stuff like that. It's one time my assault rifle didn't work the whole match, and my arms were like twisted weird, and I switched to a pistol and that worked, but not my assault rifle. It was kind of strange. So like a little polishing things here or there. But I'm just kind of like, you're just doing really similar things over and over again. If you like the gameplay loop, it's fine, right? Like, if it's fun, you got a group of lads, you know, you literally, I would not play this by myself, outside of doing, like, a review, which I had planned to until these guys popped in. Like, it really is completely overwhelming. If you play solo, it's not even really worth trying. And if quick play is not working for you, you're just kind of, like, really screwed, if that makes sense, and it's just not fun. So, like, if you have a group of pals, this can be a fun experience. Outside of that, it's a little so in that regard, I would say, for sure. But it is interesting, and it does scale kind of too. So we've got missions here where you're kind of destroying enemies, and as you complete missions, you unlock higher difficulty tiers. So, like, the higher difficulty tiers will grant you new types of missions and multi-tiered missions where it's like 2-parters that you kind of do in the same area. And it just gets harder and harder and more difficult. And it's like the enemies, they don't really change, there's just kind of more of them. Like, there's a decent variety. The bugs, it kind of feels like you kill the same bugs over and over again, at least for the robots, the Terminators. As, like, they're derivative, so in the sense, like, you're literally like, oh, I've killed this in other video games, or seen this in movies and stuff, but like they do change to a degree, so there's more variation in the robots. And that's just kind of what this is you just kind of do the same things over and over again. And you're just, like, I think there maybe needs to be a larger sense of variation within the liberating of areas, because everything's about democracy. But, like, yeah, it's really strange to me that, you know, there's not a deeper level of, like, what you're doing in this. It's just kind of really... Why did those boxes jump up like that? It's just really simplistic, is the thing, right? It's just kind of like, okay. And that's where the formula kind of wears thin, because at times I'm like, oh, this is fun, we're going down, we're shooting things, we're blasting stuff, you know, it's got that kind of like, okay, fun shooter kind of game, Destiny-like thing. Oh, and you can go in first person with your shooting if you aim in. You click in the right stick there, and it's a little... This is honestly weird. It looks like it's designed for VR. But, like, that is an option. And you're kind of, like... You are, to a degree, leveling, I guess you would say, but not really, too, and it's kind of strange. You're more getting, like, new orbital abilities and being able to tackle stuff better. And you get, like, extra weapons and stuff through the battle pass thing you earn, and it's very strange. But let's jump into the next match here. So yeah, I do find this to be rather interesting in a way, but I also do find it to be kind of, dare I say, a little bit boring after a while. We're showing off the robot side of things at this point. Because it's like, it is weird too, because the bugs, they feel like one game, and then you fight the robots, and it feels like an entirely different game. And unless you're actually told about the robots, you don't really notice them. Also, lots of pop-in in this. Noticing that more as I'm sitting here focusing on this review type thing as opposed to just streaming it. But you do get to visit some cool sci-fi worlds. I just wish you got to visit more often. I think they need to expand the scope of the territories that you're liberating in order to make this feel a little less boring, or otherwise you're gonna get like burned out and just kind of be like, eh? Because I see that there's lots of map, like worlds or planets on the overall map, but it's just like, you know, without access to them, it's kind of just like you're doing the same thing truly over and over again. And the difficulty scaling is the only way to really visit new like types of missions or objectives, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best, but yeah, I don't know this one. It's really interesting because it's kind of enjoyable to a degree, and I can see that it can be really fun for some folks, whereas I'm kind of sitting here being like, I feel like I've almost got my fill of it, and I haven't really spent a whole lot of time on it. Now, I would assume, gameplay-wise, that their goal is to eventually expand this concept past just robots and bugs. I would imagine other factions might become really Jabba the Butt. Ah, so annoying. Other factions might be something that they added to this down the road. But, yeah, I don't... This looks a lot blurrier than when I was streaming it. Holy, you can really see that resolution, like, downgrade in this. Huh. It's alright, this is just kind of really visible in this thing. At least there is dynamic elements to the look of the world in terms of, you know, the time of day and that, and environmental aspects, and you know, like, it is a pretty detailed setup. It does have some interesting gameplay mechanics to it. If you like that core structuring that's present here, you can get quite a lot of value playing it over and over again. And if they do a good enough job, I guess you would say, adding stuff to this, I think you can have fun in this experience. Because, yeah, when it is kicking and you're playing with the group, it's kind of cool. You know, you're having a good time, you're destroying things, you're adventuring together, battling, but it is sort of just this kind of like you're locked in these areas doing the same sort of thing. And I do ponder elements of the longevity of how much you would find that to be super interesting, or if you're just gonna kind of burn out of this really fast. That's so weird. As I said, though, it really is kind of something where you have to kind of do it in breaks, which is really weird, because sometimes I like to sit there and just mow away at a game with a group of pals, especially when I'm streaming and whatnot. And then you've got this like scenario that's really not set up for it, because you're essentially locked in, just kind of doing the same thing on the same 4 sectors. Like, I guess if another faction was there, there'd be 6, and if you progress enough, you would get access to additional planets, and it would change up over time. But it's just kind of odd to go in that direction for this kind of game, because I think it would be a lot better if there were more planets that you were kind of able to visit. You know, I get it is the whole sense of you're trying to feel like you're liberating these places or whatever the excuse is, but it would honestly be a lot more fascinating for me if I was actually able to visit more places. It would just keep it a lot more fresh. You're doing the same kind of objectives over and over again, but at least there's some further variation than being, you know, kind of locked in this cycle of the same aesthetics over and over and over again. It is a little peculiar from that front. But yeah, these areas, as you're seeing, there are little side things you can do. There's different side missions that give you more perks and benefits and bonuses and resources. I do like the system setup that is present for basically getting your resources, your acquisitions. You gotta put in your little Konami codes. That's the same for doing objectives too a lot of the time in this. Is you have to do like your Konami code, which kind of gets annoying too as you're trying to battle, and then it's like, oh, input your Konami code in order to do something. Same with reviving your teammates and reinforcements, and it's actually a little bit easier because you like your squad has so many shared reserves that you can bring back in, and that's interesting. So I like the game to a degree, but I'm also not necessarily blown away by it, and I think it's something that is strangely best suited for you playing a little bit of it, taking a break, coming back another day, experiencing like a slightly different area, then taking a break, coming back and doing that again. There's no story to this, if you're wondering. It's just multiplayer action. Like this type of gameplay that goes on here, this is the gameplay loop. There's nothing beyond it. There's no further story styling. There's like harder difficulties actually have a lot more enemies, I think. Maybe they just haven't been as many spawning here, but yeah, I guess it really comes down to the quantity of enemies and the setups and the challenges you're doing. That's really what the difficulty is on this, I suppose. When I really think about it from like level section to level section to level section, it's kind of interesting. So yeah, there is stuff that a particular type of individual, probably a group of pals, would like. I would not at all recommend playing this by yourself. There's no story mode. There's no story elements other than jokes about democracy. So if you're expecting a story thing, you're not going to get that here. Yeah, it is interesting. Again, it's kind of like it's structured around the battle passes in terms of, you know, how you get different weapons and armor. I'm also very surprised that they didn't go further with the cosmetics by having you be able to take off your mask, if that makes sense. Like, you're always wearing your helmet, so you don't actually have a look underneath. And I feel like they missed out on cosmetics, strangely, by not doing that. Not that I'm calling for more cosmetics, but I think it would have been kind of an interesting angle and fancier, more personalized characters instead of us all essentially wearing the same outfits until they do additional seasons of outfits, really. Yeah, different outfits and different things, because you're just kind of working through this battle passes. There's like a premium one and a regular one, and it's interesting. It is. It's kind of a little interesting in that regard. And then there's other in-game currency. There's quite a few in-game currencies and whatnot that you're doing. This is what I was saying, is like you shoot one area, blow it up, walk to the other area, shoot area like up, and then you go back to where you were. And so like just a lot of this can be a lot of just walking or like jogging around the map. It's designed almost as a bit of a gameplay padding thing, where it's just like you're just running one section to the next section and then back to the next section. It's just a pad time, which is weird. So I guess they give you like a 40-minute section, but a lot of the maps and stuff you kind of do like 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes or less, depending on the scenario. I was kind of expecting a bit more complexity in the map designs and layouts. I was a little surprised that it is such simplistic concepts that you're kind of working through. But yeah, the extra currency amounts, and then that's how you unlock new stratagems and ship adjustments and stuff and improvements. And yeah, I don't know if I'm super blown away by this. I think it's okay. I think it is a little, to a degree, forgettable. Like, I don't know how much I'm going to keep playing this one and revisiting it. Maybe a new faction would be a cool thing to kind of like, you know, bring me in and mix things up. And I really don't know. I think it depends on the type of player. For me, I kind of almost feel like I've almost just sort of had my fill already. So I'm doing the review at this point. And who knows, maybe it gets just wildly different when they add more and more, but I kind of got the gist of it, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's sort of fun. And then I think also maybe I'm just had my fill of it already. It maybe feels a little bit too much like other things and not enough like its own thing. And I think that kind of damages an interesting concept, because I sit here and I'm like, oh, it'd be cooler if it was this franchise or that franchise or another franchise. And it's just so tonally weird and all over the place in regards to one side being like, why are there robots? I thought it was a bugs game. You only see the bugs and stuff advertised, and then there's robots, and I was like, huh? What's going on here? It's very weird, but yeah, I think for a particular player, you can get a lot of replay value out of this. For others, it may overstay its welcome very quickly, and it's really going to come down to the type of individual you are and what sort of gameplay loop you enjoy most, I would say.